her on them. Hey guys, good evening. I know it's sunny and bright outside, and I'm sorry that we took a different approach after watching about 15,000 radars throughout the day today. And in the future casting, I kind of felt like we would be taking a chance. Can you go turn that off? We'd be taking a chance on what the weather would be like, and now it's kind of crazy because I hear myself talking. Okay, that Julie got it turned off. Okay, that was kind of throwing me off, and I was like listening to an echo. Anywho, so we just not sure, and I didn't want us to get out there and possibly get dumped on and go running for our lives in the middle of the youth group. Yeah, and of course, Miss Julie, so sweet, might melt. Your face is not in the camera.
Okay.
Or at least it wasn't. Can you see Miss Julie? If you're out there, can you give us a thumbs up? Oh, there we go. Okay, now there she is. Okay. There she is. Now we can see her, and I know we're about 30 seconds or so behind what you're actually getting. So at any rate, just wanted to, again, just say sorry. We kind of, again, I just wasn't sure what the weather looked like, and I didn't want to take a chance in what is coming eventually, whether it actually swirled around us or whatever it did.
Swirling dervish.
Swirling dervish, yeah. Anyway, swirled around us, and looks like it could be kind of a nice big boomer of a rain. So anyway, didn't want to take the chance. So hey, I hope you caught on the chat earlier this week, or I should say late last week, the link to the Christian Festival Association for the Christian Music Festival, 2020 Christian Music Festival, which is going to be, was kind of supposed to be a joint video stream version of a music festival, because so many of them, of course, got canceled. And lots of fun going to those festivals. I've been to several, and they're just tons of fun. But if you missed the live stream on that festival, and you'd still like to catch up on it and some of the artists that were in that live stream, my understanding is you can still follow the link that shows up earlier in the chat, and you can still go out and view at least parts or all of it, or skip around in it, or whatever you want to do. You can still go out and replay it if you'd like to do that for yourself as well. So anyway, just encourage you to do that if you'd like to maybe catch a few tunes from some great Christian artists, that kind of thing. So please do that, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hey guys, just also want to say, of course, we've been hearing for like the last week or so about the resurgence of the COVID across the South and affecting other parts of the country as well. And I want to say, even though while we haven't seen a huge uptick here in Indiana, just continue to be vigilant. I know, guys, we get kind of tired of the masks, and they're suffocating. And I just want you guys to be safe yourselves, of course, but I also want you to be mindful of your parents and your grandparents, particularly people that may be a little more at risk. So please just remember to continue to exercise wisdom there, guys. I know we get tired of it, and we are all just tired of the distancing, and just wish we could give each other a great big hug. Well,
I do.
I can give you a great big hug.
You're so
Anywho,
sweet, Pee-Pee.
You know, that's what, never mind. Okay, I'm just gonna stop there. Never gonna do nothing but embarrass all you guys, all three of you that are probably out there watching. So. Anyway, so be wise and be safe, and just one more thing I want to talk about real quickly before we jump into the lesson, and that is fun. Who likes to have fun? Everyone raise your hand. Likes to have fun.
I like fun.
I like to have fun. So here's the deal. Speaking of COVID and having to remain socially distant, which is no fun. I'm glad that we've been getting together on most Wednesdays as weather has not, when weather's not been threatening. Man, I'm looking for a way and some suggestions on how we could still get together just for fun, just to get together and do something, and still be socially distant, still be wise about the spread, So if you've got ideas or you've heard some ideas yourself, I am extremely open to that. I want us to be able to do something fun together. I miss spending time with you guys. Glad we've been able to get together on Wednesdays, but if we can find a way to maybe get together for some kind of activity, some kind of fun that's still socially distant and still together though. So send me your thoughts and your ideas either way about what you're thinking about that, and hopefully we can get something planned in that direction too. And hopefully again, next Wednesday, just keep an eye on the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to be back together. Of course, next week, big week next week.
Big Wednesday for some.
Oh my, yeah. If you don't already know what we're talking about, I know Tegan is extremely excited about it.
Oh, yes.
She was out at Perry today getting her lovely student picture taken for her student ID so that no one could mistake her for a teacher or staff or some random adult off the street.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, she's got that taken care of with both eyes exposed. Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
If you don't understand what I mean by that, just keep looking for her and her due if you haven't seen it yet. Anywho, school's coming up, right? Next week? Starting out next week.
Perry starts next Wednesday.
And I'm not sure what way a lot of people are going with school this year. I'm sure you are very excited about getting back to school, but
Southport starting up.
Yep.
Beach Grove.
I read today that there are a few school districts in the county that are actually delaying a couple of weeks at this point, but you're probably not one of them.
Warren Central.
Warren Central is one. That's right. They're delaying a little bit. Anyway, but not Perry. No, not MSD Perry Township. So, what's that going to look like for you guys? I mean, who knows really what that's going to look like? It could mean a whole bunch of different things. So, who's going to school? Who's going to be at school? Are you going to be at school this year? I mean, like in the building, so you see face to face your teachers and all your very best buddies. My very best buddy. Yeah. And then, if you're not going to be at school, then are you going to be doing the whole remote learning thing like you did this spring? Because we all know how fun that was, right? Tons of fun there. And I know Tegan loved that. That was, I think, one of her favorite times of her entire school career. Wouldn't you say that?
It was mine. If not Tegan's, I know it was mine.
That's right. Both of you passed 10th grade.
Yes, we
I
did
think we talked about that.
successfully.
Yay.
Twice for me.
Does that mean you're going to be a junior this year?
Yeah, I'm going to be junior.
I can tell everybody I'm dating a junior. Anywho, or if you're not, thinking about whether you're going to be there or whether you're going to be remote, or what about the question, and I know some people are even asking this question, what about the amount of days? Are they still going to go the same number of days? Are they going to shorten the school year? What's going to be happening? We don't really know a lot of it, and I imagine that we'll see a changing situation as things with the virus kind of unfold and change, and then, if you go to school one day and half your student body is out with COVID, then I think they'll probably decide to change things maybe.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I think it kind of depends on the numbers and the health department.
That's true.
Making decisions
So
along with the districts.
Who knows, right? Who knows how that's going to unfold? We're praying that it all goes well, school gets open successfully, you guys can get back in the groove and feel good about seeing each other again. So the first question I really want to ask you is, how will the coming school year be different than this previous school year? Not just the second semester, but the whole previous school year. So how do you think that the school year will be different this year than the previous? Masks every day. Aaron says masks every day. Hannah says same thing. Well, I have to wear masks. And of course, you'll have to be socially distant as well.
Which is going to be very interesting.
That's right. If you
It'll be
have
odd.
gym, how do you do gym socially distant?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a challenge. Got to be socially distanced. What are some other ways do you think that this school year is going to be different than last year and years before? Do you think there are going to be any other kind of differences that happen at school?
Jasmine, need me social distance chair.
So your social distance chair, Jasmine, does that mean that it will be in the school or at your house? And will that be socially distanced enough for you, or would you rather just be at the school?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting that, yes, Addison said there will be less people around. So I know Tegan's talking to her friends and texts and stuff saying, are you going to be at home? Are you going to be at school? And just how odd she felt going into the school since they hadn't been there for so long. She's like, I felt like a brand new visitor or student to the building, but then, how busy will the school be?
Yeah.
And then, like, if you're going around, like, if they're going to have arrows about where you can go and how you go, that's going to be really weird.
That would be very different. It would be very weird. Let's move on from this, because I'm sure we could probably talk about all kinds of differences from this school year. There's no question it's probably going to be a unique year for you, right? So what do you plan on doing about those different challenges? How do you plan on approaching those challenges? I know some of them you probably are anticipating. We've talked about them. The masks. We've talked about staying socially distanced, less students in the hallway. How do you plan on going about facing and handling those different changes? Ms. Julie, what would you do if it was you?
For me, as much as I like being outgoing, this would be like my ideal setting, because I always get prepared. Like, I always have to know, like, I would have my backpack ready. Would I have more than one mask? Yes. Would I, try to do as much as I could to get ready if I can't talk to people like normal? And how am I going to handle that? And
yeah, how would you handle not being
like
able
the bus ride there's going to be weird too, because like you can't talk.
Can you imagine?
Not sit on the same bus seat with people from the side of your family?
I have difficulty envisioning Miss Julie not talking to people.
Or, okay, so if you haven't seen a friend in a long time and you see them in the hallway, I have a tendency to hug people, and I go, and I run towards them and I hug them. And
it's at that point that they go, and they're in the other direction.
Yes, well, or you get in trouble because you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So is there any of you guys, what do you think you're going to do yourself to handle those new challenges? Because there are definitely going to be some new challenges.
I mean, there may not be a lot of cheating this year. I mean, that's one thing.
Well, it's hard to look on your neighbor's paper when they're sitting 6 feet away.
Or passing love notes. That would be really hard to do.
Paper airplanes, you might want to perfect a model that works best for that.
You have to be creative, people. That's all I'm saying.
Of course, when you can
get your creative juices flowing.
When you can just text them, that's a little bit
Well,
different.
There's nothing quite as nice though as a handwritten sentimental love note.
That's right, with a little smooch smack symbol written on
X's and O's.
Mm-hmm. So, any of you guys, what do you think you're going to do that is going to help you to be able to face those challenges that's going to be different for you? Anyone? Anybody?
There's nobody. They have no plans.
No. For people,
they got until next Wednesday to get figured out.
For people that are not like Miss Julie, they're going to be very happy that there aren't as many people in the building, I think. So, let's go on to the next question. So, what do you think will affect plans that you made this coming school year? How do you think it will affect plans that you made? I don't know that I said that the way I wanted to. For this coming school year, I mean, did you have any big plans made? You know what I'm talking about. Different events happen throughout the school year, right? All kinds of different events happen throughout the school year. I know when I was a young warthog in my school, it would be the fall
homecoming,
the fall homecoming and the fall play, prom in the spring musical,
the recitals for music, choir, stuff like that. That's
all of
different.
those. That's right. Aaron said sports will be different, and we might not have a fan section. That's right.
Yeah.
People, will they be present?
There's
a lot less clubs. Absolutely. So maybe some of the clubs that you participated in, golly, they're maybe not even going to meet, which would be really kind of.
Yeah, that'd be stinky. So I'm thinking in that, so Teague and I have had, because they had like the Wizards and Weirdos or Wizards or Dungeons and something group that she was in, and we were like, you could do a Zoom. Could you not do a Zoom? Like, you have to be creative. You could do a Zoom meet, like a group meet for Zoom, right?
When you throw your dice for that, is everybody going to trust
Dungeons
you?
and Dorks, yeah, that's what it was.
Are they going to trust your?
Well, I don't know, but you could at least have a face. You could have a
If you had to throw on a
face-to-face panel
6-sided die and you
conversation.
told them that you had a 12, I might not believe you.
I just think you got to be a lot more creative.
Yeah.
And you could be like the baseball league and get like big printouts of people's faces, including your pets. Maybe you just have those up around in the stadium for your fan base. I don't know.
Yeah, so Ms. Hammer says that the sports interactions for Greenwood haven't changed.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to hear. So it might not change those things, but maybe it'll change some of the other events.
We got Greenwood too.
Yeah. But they're definitely, I think it's going to affect some of those things. And maybe is it going to affect how many people are allowed to go to prom or homecoming? Is it going to affect who's able to come to the game or not come to the game? Those are big things. Or are you even going to get to do the musicals or the plays?
So like marching band, I know like the band competitions have been canceled. This, the sectionals and all that. So even if, like, I enjoy a good football game in the bleachers with the smell of the popcorn, hot dog, all that kind of business.
I thought you were going to say the smell of your neighbor.
No. Well, you do smell that sometimes at the football game, but I like going to football games and just having that whole interaction. So you're going to have to be distant in the stadium. That's going to be weird. Basketball, what are they going to do for basketball season?
Yeah.
You're going to wear a mask and then you need to be distant. That's just going to be awkward.
So it's pretty clear that there's going to be a lot of changes, and some of it's going to be uncertain, and it's going to like flow and ebb, and who knows what's going to unfold there. Bigger question though is this: do you think that all of this coronavirus stuff will affect you for the future school years beyond this one? Do you think it'll have an effect in those things?
It might.
What do you guys think?
I feel for the kids that are seniors this year.
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you've been
or last
working,
year's seniors too, yeah.
But yeah, because I mean, if you're a band nerd, we were band nerds, and you're getting prepped for the whole season, and then your competitions all get canceled. That stinks. I mean, especially if you're a drum corps major, and this is a big thing. If in any of the sports, if this is your senior year, and you're like Erin is saying, you've got maybe ideas of how you're going to behave and run and play soccer or cross country, stuff like that, and then everything has changed.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at that as a way for getting help in scholarships for college, that's huge for your family.
So Trace is saying that he doesn't think it'll affect future school years. And I'd be interested to know, Trace, why you don't think it's going to affect future years. But Addison says that she thinks it will. So Addison, likewise, I'd like to know, why do you think it will affect future school years beyond this school year? I can think of some reasons why it would affect the future school years. And it's got nothing to do, at least what I'm thinking, with what the school might mandate or what the school might decide or even the state might decide about going to school or how things will operate. Because as a result of all this, you may discover that you got friends who suddenly become germaphobes in the middle of all this. I mean,
Mr. Milk, I know, yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they don't want to be around other people because so maybe we got that virus in check. What about the next one that comes around the corner? Maybe you start seeing friends that start worrying more about that, and they start to keep their distance. That little bit, not so much of a little bit of a thing.
Yeah.
There's a real effect that it could have there. I'd be curious to know though what other kinds of effects you would think it would have in future years. Can you think of anything, Ms. Julie?
For future years, I would think, it certainly makes you wonder about any kind of bug. I mean, the first time I was in church and I sneezed, I felt weird because you're just more conscious of like the spread of stuff now. And I've been watching House. I've watching. I've never watched it. And every episode they talk about all these different germs in the air and all this. I'm like, oh, just makes you you're just much more aware of things. But for the future, if you're thinking of going away for college, you've now got to prepare for like Purdue, they're trying to do what they can to get all of their students back on campus, but they might be doing one person to a room or two people to a room or family to a room, which is odd.
So you have to room with
You
your
have to
brother
really-
or sister.
Well, or you have to think about if you don't get on campus housing, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to afford off-campus housing? Most colleges don't want their freshmen off of campus. Are you going to stay at home?
That's true.
You know, and then our class is going to get more filled up or less filled up, and availability of things like that. Future jobs, because I've been going through that, about people are nervous about the spread of disease and are not hiring as quickly
That's true. That's
as they
true
used
too.
to. So
So, you know, we mentioned our seniors this last year and seniors this year. You know, you've had plans maybe that you hoped for the coming school year, and it's definitely altering those plans, right? I mean, and you all could probably think of different aspects of the school year that are going to be completely different, and probably much more different than you would like for it to have been. Things are changing. I'll tell you what, if all of this stuff has taught us anything at all, though, it should be that our plans and our ideas can be very, very easily, completely, and totally wrecked. You know what I'm saying? So we were planning spring retreat back in April, guys. What happens? Boom.
Yeah.
Right in the ditch, no spring retreat, completely wrecked. And it changes the entire course of what's going on around us, right? I mean, I'm so glad we're back at church and able to meet back at church when we're available, but you know what? Even though we're back together, and I'm very thankful for it, it's still not quite the same.
mm-hmm.
It's just not quite the same.
No, nah, Luke, nah.
Yeah, nah, they won't miss out on that. Yeah, Addison, you are absolutely correct. Because I think, as important as your academics are, that social interaction that you go through at school, that's pretty important stuff. And it means a lot to you guys, I know. I know for us adults, that social interaction means a lot. That's why we were all so anxious to get back together for church. That's why I was anxious to get back to youth group with you guys, because, man, we want to be with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're people, we're humans, and we like being with other human beings, unless you're
I like
Luke,
being with human
of
beings.
course.
I like, you know, I like everybody
Luke
in church.
apparently doesn't like being with other humans.
Oh, only some people.
Anyway, I guess we'll let that go. You know, all of that gets changed. And it just, no matter what plans we've had, no matter what it is that maybe we wanted or we desired or we set out for us, it can get wrecked in a moment. And this coronavirus thing certainly should have taught us that, if nothing else. Because, you know, we thought now here nationwide, it sounded like we were doing better and making progress, and then across the South, things started going in the other direction, and now almost every state is starting to do the mask mandate, and so that's definitely a surprise. It's definitely wrecks plans and gets us in a direction that none of us really wanted to go. Well, who wanted to go that way in April to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the Bible, James gives us, though, some really, really good advice about what our view of the future and what our view of what lies ahead for us should be like. So I want to read a passage for you that is probably pretty familiar to most of you. Here in James chapter 4, verse 13 through 16, James said, "Look here, you who say, today or tomorrow, we're going to go to a certain town and we'll stay there for a year. We will do business there and make a profit. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It is here a little while, then it is gone." What you ought to say is, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. Otherwise, you are boasting about your own pretentious plans, about your own pretentious plans. And all such boasting is evil.
Well, you have to do it like
Evil. It's evil.
Evil.
And apparently Miss Julie's got the evil thing down. I could have told you that. So, question. According to James, what's the problem with depending on our plans? What is such the big deal? What's that problem if I'm going around making plans? I mean, should I stop planning my life? I know Kieran, as he's gone through college, I mean, he's put a lot of thought into not just, what classes he wants to take, but he's been putting a lot of thought into the direction it's going to take him once he finishes school this year. And he's been planning. I don't think there's a thing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
Planning's a good thing. It helps you to set your goals and see what's ahead of it. What do you think is the problem here, though, that is wrong with depending on those kinds of plans? So I'd be interested for one of you guys to give us, or maybe all of you guys, to give us what you think the problem is. According to these verses, Miss Julie, I'm going to switch back a screen here if you want to take a look at it there. Again, that was James 4:13 through 16. What is the problem with making the plans? Miss Julie, what do you think?
Well, I believe he said, how do you know what your life is going to be tomorrow? What's it going to be like?
That's correct.
How do you know
So,
if he really
have
knows?
you ever had that happen? You were going along, you thought everything was going to be one
Peachy.
way. You wake up in the morning and all of a sudden,
Yes.
yeah, instead of peachy, it's
PP?
Limburger cheese.
Yes, I've had that happen.
Yeah, so can you give me an example?
Yeah, so not the current job I've had, but the previous one, I was working as a Medicare consultant, and we were working on the ICD-10 conversion for coding. So when you go to the doctor,
ICD-10, you
and they
guys know
say,
what all that
you've
is.
got boogers on your feet, or whatever it is, there's a code that goes with that, and you have to code it, and it goes through for payment. Well, they were doing a big change to the codes. They were going from like 3 digits to 7. So it was a big change. And our group of people that we were working on helping the nation, come up with a way to get that conversion process done a lot quicker and faster. And then the lovely government we have in Washington, D.C., the Senate overnight voted, it was like a late night, early morning vote to extend the time frame in which people had to convert. So that literally meant overnight I lost my job. So I wake up in the morning and realize, oh, thank you. I now have no job because it was dependent on the contract that we had. So that stunk like a big fat pig.
Yeah, so changes come.
Change.
Changes come, and sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen then, right?
Correct.
That's what happened to me back in 1991. I think it was like July the 6th.
The best day of your life, buddy.
One morning I'm a single bachelor, carefree and footloose, and the next morning I'm shackled. No.
Really now.
Things
Gonna get rid of
things change. So Miss Julie says the problem is that you don't know what's coming around tomorrow, right? And I think that's true. What do you think maybe are some other problems with that? What is the problem with laying out plans? Is there, I mean, like I say, making plans is okay. It's a good thing. And I think that we should make plans. But what about it is a problem? So just Julie says, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right. So one of my past managers, shout out to Sally Hopkins, is one of the best phrases she ever had was, "Don't get married to it."
You got married to me.
I got married to you, yes,
Oh.
but she used that a lot to say that's a great idea, that's a great plan, but don't get married to it because you never know when things could change.
Yeah,
So don't get your heart set on that's how it's going to be, because you never know what the next
you
day
may
could
have
bring.
to roll with the punches. You may have to be able to make some changes. And that's another good point.
Mhm.
Maybe you're stuck in just the one thing that you are sure is the way your plan ought to go.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it all goes off the rails and goes in no direction. That's definitely a problem. James, I think, goes even further, though, about what it is that's really problematic. It's not that we make plans, it's that we become so dependent on the plan that I've made, I become convinced that my plan is the plan. It is the only plan, right? What is it that James tells us our attitude really should be, though? what does he tell us our attitude should be? And he starts there in verse 15 about what our attitude should be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty convinced my plan's the best plan, right? But if God comes along and goes, no, I got another idea for you, and throws you a curveball, what's going to happen?
How are you going to handle it?
It's how are you going to handle it? You go, no, God, we've got the plan right here. I can talk to you about that, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it's more like God says, no, I got the plan, right? Isn't that the attitude that James is telling us we should have? And it is going to be okay because it's my plan and not your plan. Yeah, because our plan could be wrong, and there's a lot of problems with that because God's got the plan, but if I think mine's better, I don't know, there might be a little friction between you and God, right? That could turn out pretty bad. Aaron says our attitudes should match with God's plan. That's a good way of putting it, Aaron. I really like that. What I desire should match what God desires. And if I discover that my desire doesn't match God's desires, what should I do?
Not do what you thought that is not desirable to God.
And maybe I should change my desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
I should be willing to change my desire. I should be able to say, okay, I'm going to make my life match the plan that God has for me, not what I wanted.
Which
right?
is hard.
It can be hard. It can be really hard and sometimes painful and difficult, and it sometimes can make you kind of mad.
Or
Admit
crazy.
that's happened to me as well. Why do you think we spend so much time making our plans and laying plans out? And we do that with all kinds of different things, laying out plans. We do it with so many different things. We do it from the smallest things like our breakfast cereal all the way to my lifelong career. I plan that I'm going to do this, and I think that's the best way to go. And if you think you're going to go down and have Fruity Pebbles for breakfast, and you discover all it's there is all bran,
Or the milk went sour overnight.
you're going to have to maybe roll with the punches on that. You go with the all bran, what are you going to do?
Addison.
Yeah. Being prepared, that's right. We do. We really, really want to be prepared. We want to...
Be prepared. Wasn't that in Mulan?
No, that would be the Lion King,
Oh.
and the bad guy sang that song. That was the bad people that said that.
Sorry. It was still Disney, though.
Not exactly
I should
right
get
song.
credit.
Anyway,
Sarah.
so good job, Addison. Be prepared. Be prepared to be flexible. Be prepared to move in the wind when God says it's time to bend. And because if you don't bend to God's plan, I'm going to tell you, you will find yourself broken one place or the other, right? We want to make our plans and stick with our plans. And why do you think that we want so much our plans? Why do we spend so much time focusing on the plan for ourselves and laying it all out before us? Why do you think we do that, Miss Julie?
Well, I think in my experience doing this, because I have done it, I think I have in mind what I want to do. And I am a preparer. I like to have things kind of laid out, and I like to know what I can, I don't like big surprises. I'm kind of flexible with stuff, but I like to have something at least out there to know, because it makes me feel more secure. Like
Yep.
I'm in control of something here.
So control. So
And-
you said two key things in there so far. You've talked about want and control.
Yes, I want control.
So that's an interesting idea. You want control, and sometimes it's not about the things that I want, because the things that I want still might link back to control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Someone else, feel free to jump in, guys, anytime at all here. Why do you think we spend so much time planning? Ms. Julie says it's got a lot to do with want. It's got a lot to do with control.
Well, and I think too, many times I hear, from 6th grade on, the school system's like, what are you going to do for your future? And they nag you almost about,
Where are you going to go to
you've got
college?
fill
What's
out
going to
this
be your
form, and
major?
You've got to tell us what it is you're going to do for the
How much
rest of
do you
your
want
life.
to make
I
every
have no
year?
idea. So you just pick something, but then it really does, every year you got to do this. So there's always this constant thing of like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are your plans for the future?
Yeah.
I don't know.
In 4th grade, have you started applying to colleges yet? It's
So-
almost that bad sometimes.
Right. So I think and even when you're in your job, sometimes you think about like, how long am I going to have this job? Do I want to be in this job for 20 years?
Or
If you're lucky to find a company that will let you do that, or am I going to have to start going back to school the minute I get a job because I got to keep, me going forward with
or you get
certifications and
used to
skills.
certain procedures and guidelines and things they want you to do, and all of a sudden,
Right.
2
Kablamo.
days,
There's
2
a new
days later,
president, they
yeah.
come in and they want new regulations done. So
Yeah.
yeah,
2 days later, they come along and they go, you know what you've been doing the last 20 years? Hey, forget about that. Let's do this.
we're going to change it out.
Yeah.
Switch it up for you.
But that's the way life works for us too. And I think a lot of it really does have to do with what I want, what I can control, and sometimes I think it's also about pride, about what makes me look good, or what makes me more acceptable, or what makes people think I'm successful.
Yeah.
Those are important things that are important to us. We think that we know what we want, and we even think that we know what would be good for us, or even would be best for our entire lives sometimes. And people
I was
have
going to marry a very wealthy man. I'm just telling you.
and she did.
Yeah.
Rich in spirit.
Oh yeah.
Give thumbs up, right? Okay. We think we know what's best, maybe. And you know what? James tells us that that is just arrogant. We just are boasting, and we're pretentious. We're being arrogant about ourselves. But if we are honest, we've got no clue what the whole picture looks like. Right now, in this moment, I got no clue what that whole picture might be and what might be coming down the road. And if I lay out all my plans and I am so dead set on what's in my future and what I'm going to achieve and what my plans are, and I hit those bumps in the road and God throws me a curveball, then, or life throws me a curveball, then, and I'm not prepared and flexible, and I'm not ready to come alongside God's plan, then I'm going to find myself in trouble. And if we make those plans, and if we're honest with ourselves, we don't know the picture. We even lie to ourselves sometimes and make excuses about why what I want is the best thing. And we'll come up with some elaborate scheme in our head, and we'll rationalize why that's the best way, even when God comes and goes, and we'll say, wait a minute, God, I think you're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong. I know someone that I think I've known this person almost 17, it'll be 17 years in September. I've known this person
Okay.
who sometimes has that attitude.
Like, I know better than
When they say, no, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. No, you don't. Yes, in fact. And that's what God's saying. No, God, you don't understand. No, God, you don't. And God's going, yes, in fact, I do understand.
Miss Sarah responded.
Yeah, oh yeah,
CSI sounds way cooler than a science teacher.
absolutely, I'll bet so.
But God's calling is way better than anything cooler.
Absolutely. Gosh, we all remember when Miss Sarah got that big curveball thrown in her direction. But God took her in a place that He wanted her to be. And we thank God that she's willing to go in God's direction, because, you don't know what you'll miss if you fight God just to do what you want because you want it, rather than following God and being willing to bend with His plan. We make up excuses why what we want is the best. Now, in Romans, Paul tells us that the picture is a lot different than what we think it is. And that if we think that we know ourselves now, well, Paul tells us that, he gives us an illustration and a demonstration how wrong we are about knowing ourselves. And he doesn't say those words in this passage, but the first phrase here in this passage I'm about to show you is pretty clear and insinuates pretty strongly about who really does know us. Out of Romans 8:29, not 28:28, not that one, 8:29 says, "For God knew his people in advance." Did you catch that? God knew his people in advance. Now, does that mean 2 minutes before we walk through the door he knew us? Does it mean 2 hours before we walk through the door he knew? What do you think, Mr.
I
Lee?
think it means forever.
Forever. Forever. Yeah. And he chose them to become like his son, so that his son would be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. So, according to this verse, how long has God known us? We kind of talked about that already. How long has God known you, Miss Julie? Forever. So in order for that to forever to be, does that mean he has known you since before you were born in 1969?
Yes, PP.
It does?
There's a Bible verse that says that God knew us when we were still in heaven, as babies in heaven.
As babies in heaven?
Mhm.
You mean as
As infants.
you knew me before I was stitched together in my mother's womb? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
but there is also a verse that talks about how, and I can't remember it, but I think it says that even as we were infants in heaven, he knew us.
Okay, I would be interested in seeing that passage. Forgive me if I'm not tracking with you. No, that's quite all right. Well, he knew us forever. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't mean he knew us on our birthday, and it doesn't mean that he knew us the day that we were conceived. It means that God knew forever, which means as long as God has been, God knew who we would be. He has known us in advance. He has known us. That's how long God has known us. So, next question here. What is his purpose in knowing us and choosing us? What does God have? What purpose is there that he has in knowing us and in choosing us? This verse says it in the, I would say second half, but in the bottom 2/3, he indicates what's the plan, what's the purpose in knowing us and in choosing us. Can anyone take a guess on that? I'm going to read the next part for you here real quick. And he chose them to become like his son, so that his son would be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. What was his plan in knowing us? What is it that he accomplishes, or his purpose in knowing us and choosing us? Oh, we're getting a response here. I'm so excited to see it. What's his purpose in knowing it? It stopped. Who was it? Family? Love? Okay, so we do become part of his family. He does love us. That's definitely true, Miss Sarah. There's a purpose, though, that he has in knowing us. What is it? In choosing us. And it's in that second line. Somebody tell me. Aaron's giving us a response here. Okay, so that we should show Jesus to siblings and family members and others. I think that that's true, and the verse doesn't say that explicitly, but I think that is a result that comes from God's purpose. Because, here, let me just put a fine point on it for you. His purpose in knowing us in advance and his purpose in choosing us is so that we become like Jesus. That's his purpose. His purpose is so that we become like Jesus. So Aaron, you're right in what you say, that we end up showing family, we end up showing friends and siblings and other people who Jesus is if we're following that purpose that God has for us. and that purpose is that we become like Jesus. And then he goes on here in that second part. He tells us that Jesus became the firstborn, or to put it a little bit different way, the perfect model or example on what we should be. That is what Jesus intends to happen. He wants us to become like Jesus, and Jesus has been for us the model and the example of what it is that we should be. He is the firstborn, the perfect model, the perfect example in how we should be and how we should live and what we should do. And what's all this got to do with our future? Well, if we are becoming like Jesus, because God knows us, because God understands us, that's going to affect our plans. It's going to affect the way that we look toward the future and how willing we really are to give up that want in order to become more like Jesus, to bend with his plan and align ourselves with his plan. When we become more like Jesus, we're more willing to say to the Father, not what I want, but what you want. And I think you could probably fill that in with something very similar that Jesus said. I'll just leave that to you for the moment, though. He's that perfect example. And because of it is what he says in the verse before this, and I think when we understand this verse, it helps us understand the verse beforehand even better. And it is that verse that is so familiar to so many people in Romans 8:28, when he says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose, being like Jesus, for them. He works everything for their good. Okay. So, gave this one away for you guys already. Hope you can guess it. What's God at work doing? According to this. What's he at work doing for us? What's he at work doing? What's he doing? Every day, every moment, he's doing something for us. And what is it that he's doing? Miss Julie, what is it do you think he's doing?
He's giving us a purpose.
Well, he is giving us a purpose, but in the first part of this verse, what is it he says he's doing? He's taking everything and he's doing what with it? He's working it together so he can poke us in the eye with it. Right? No, he's working everything together for our good, for our benefit. He works all of that together for our good and for our benefit. And he does it for everyone who loves him and are following his purpose, who are called in that purpose. So let's think about that for just a second. He's doing everything for our good. And Jesus was the perfect model, right? He was the firstborn. So everything's for our good. Jesus is the perfect model, right? So how easy was Jesus' life? Well, a lot of people look at Jesus and they may think, well, he was the Son of God. He had to have it pretty easy, right?
He was perfect.
Well, he was perfect. But did that mean that he got it easy?
No.
Well, Miss Julie, why do you think that he didn't get it easy?
It was not God's plan for Jesus to have the... Well, he was perfect and did not commit anything that was imperfect. His ultimate plan for Jesus' life was to be the sacrifice for us.
A sacrifice. So sacrifice, that's a pretty hard thing, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty difficult. What are other things that Jesus faced that might have been difficult? Was his the easy life? He grew up like every child, right? Mm-hmm. So he faced the same challenges that most children face.
We don't hear of Jesus as a child being bullied, but we certainly know that Jesus while on earth was bullied.
Absolutely, because we see many examples throughout the New Testament, throughout the Gospels, where the teachers of the law and others gave him a very hard way to go. They poured the pressure on him because they didn't like what he was saying and they didn't like what he was doing. He didn't just go out and went, oh yeah, well there's Jesus, it's all great, let's love Jesus. No, he faced difficulty and hard criticism, and he knew that there were people that were his enemies that were out there and that were really truly actively plotting against them. And how many of you guys can say that? Someone's out there plotting against me on purpose.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus had that, right? And of course, Miss Julie mentions the big one, which is that whole sacrifice thing. And when we remember that whole experience of his sacrifice, what is the big picture that we always think of? So maybe we think about the pain on the cross. Maybe we think about the lashes with the cat of nine tails. But I always think about the garden when he said to Jesus, not my will, but thine. And he sweat drops of blood from the stress and the anguish that he faced. Jesus' life was not easy. Now, if we are the model of Jesus, what does that mean for our lives? Does that mean that everything that comes our way should be easy?
No.
No, of course not. Does that mean that God, because God favors us and he loves us and he cares about us, he's going to open up every doorway and every path and everything will always be just as crystal clear as it possibly can be, and we will always know exactly the right thing to say and exactly the right thing to do, and we'll always be able to face with absolute certainty of triumph over those who might actually actively plan against us. And sometimes that may actually happen for some folks. Does that mean that that's all going to happen? No. We may face difficulties. My future may be very uncertain at times. And who knows what the morning's going to bring for us, right? We've already seen that in the passages we've looked at. Maybe tomorrow morning I'm going to get up and it's going to be a huge blessing. Or maybe it's going to be something that brings really deep hurt and wounds. Or maybe it will be something that causes me even to stumble somewhat in my faith, or maybe to completely stumble in my faith because it was so hard and so difficult. Now, God certainly has the plan and he is certainly in control, but I also know that life is difficult. But no matter what it is that it does hold for us, God has promised for us that every bit of it that we face is for our good. It is for the good of the people who love him, who are dedicated to him, who are following his purpose, and that purpose is what, Miss Julie?
To become like Jesus.
Become like Jesus.
Right.
Good answer, Miss
I
Julie.
had a verse pop up in my head. It was like Romans 8:30. I was trying to do that. So.
That's okay. So that's what God is doing all of the time. And so if I'm going through difficulty, is it because God hates me? No. It's because God loves me, and he is taking all of those things and bringing them together and fashioning them together for what is best and what is good for my life and for his kingdom as well. He's doing that. And no matter what it is that we face, he is working it for good. And guess what? Guess what? It's not just that. And maybe you can guess that there's a bonus.
Oh, bonus!
A bonus.
Ding, 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 ding,
Bonus. No one. Why are you guys not picking up on that? God, yeah, bonus. How many weeks now has it at the end? Bonus time, right? Bonus time. Bonus. Here's the bonus. Let's look for just a moment, and we're going to wrap up here real soon, at Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 through 16. Out of Hebrews, we get this. So then, since we have a great high priest who has entered heaven, who's that high priest?
God, Jesus.
Jesus. Jesus, the Son of God, there's the answer. Let us hold firmly to what we believe. This high priest of ours understands our weaknesses, for he faced all of the same testings we do, yet he did not sin. So, this passage already is reiterating for us the fact that Jesus knows us and understands our place, and his life was not easy. He faced weakness himself. He faced testing himself, and he went through difficulty, and he was able to do it without sinning, of course, because he was perfect. He was Jesus, right? So let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. There we will receive his mercy, and we will find grace to help us when we need it the most. And this last part to me is just so awesome, that we will receive mercy and we will receive grace from God. Why is it that we can be confident in all of this? Because we know that Jesus, who is the high priest, who is the guy who is talking directly to God on our behalf all of the time, he understands and he knows exactly where we are in our lives. Jesus wasn't one of those untouchable models up on the runway at Milan or Paris, flaunting about in some crazy get up that was for high fashion and only the most snooty of those would ever have access to it, and only the most present. No, Jesus got right down in the dirt with us. He got right down and met us in the trenches where the rubber meets the road, and he knows exactly where we're at. The weakness, the hurts, the testing, but he didn't give into sin. And you know what? It means that we don't have to give into sin either. He goes along with us in the journey and in the plan, and when we're listening and modeling ourselves after him, he enables us to correct that course rather than hold on to the wants and the desires that we want. And I know sometimes, even then, when we're trying to trust Jesus, it's still kind of hard sometimes to let go of those and to release what those things are. He goes with us. We can turn to him when things are at our absolute worst point in our lives, guys. And maybe you got something going on and you think you can't get through it. You don't know how to resolve it. You don't know if it will ever go away or ever end. You don't know, people find out about this, it's going to ruin who I am, it's going to embarrass me. But you know what? None of that's true, because Jesus goes with us and he enables us to get through all of it. And most importantly, I don't know what happened. I must have, sorry, let me back up here. There we go. And most importantly, comes that bonus of mercy and grace. So what's mercy? Mercy is when we don't get what we deserve. In other words, that punishment that we deserve as someone that's sinful, God holds it back. The suffering that we should be facing that's even greater than the suffering I'm in now, God holds that back. He's merciful to us. And what is grace? Well, when we don't deserve, the richness that he gives us, the love, the care, the direction, when he opens a path for us to escape from hurt or find a way through it, those are things we don't deserve to have. But he gives those things, and that's grace. When God gives us things that we are very unworthy of, like his love and his forgiveness and understanding, we get access to all of that. And it changes our lives, it changes our perspective, and it enables us, as we try to model ourselves after Jesus, even though my future may be uncertain. I don't know what the next school year is going to hold for me, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. What I do know is Jesus is there, and he's going to see me through, and he's going to be by my side because he knows, and he understands, and he's with me all the time. Okay, Miss Julie, will you close us in a word of prayer? Oh, wait, before we close in a word of prayer, is there any kind of praise that you'd like to share?
Yes, I have had an interview. This is going to be the longest interview process ever in my life. But I had an interview yesterday that went very well, And I am now, that was like a second interview actually, but now I'm going into a third level interview, and I have to have 3 separate 30-minute interviews. So that will probably be sometime next week. So if you guys can keep that in your prayers, that goes well, because this whole lesson that PP's been talking about tonight has been my life for the last month. And I do want to praise God for that, because I know that this job is coming from God. The way that He's worked everything out, and the awesome ways that He's reminding me and poking me and saying, I got you, kid, it's going to be okay, has been a true blessing. So please keep that in your prayers.
Absolutely. Yeah, truly. Though the job for Miss Julie right now is not a sure thing, and we realize that, we are believing that God has definitely opened the opportunity, and some of the things that have happened to be able to make this happen have just been incredibly cool. Very, very amazing. So we do praise God, both of us, for how He's been working.
Yes.
And you know what? God does that not for us because we're great Christians.
No.
No. He does it for you because you love Him. He does it for us because hopefully we are giving Him our best effort and giving Him our love and attempting to do just what we've done in this talked about in this lesson, to follow alongside Him, to hopefully model ourselves after Him, and to be willing to be flexible and change our plan, and know even if it's tough, we know He's with us. All right, go ahead and pray for us to close service. Ms. Julie, go ahead.
Father, we want to thank you for this lesson. We thank you for having another opportunity to hear your word and spend time together, hopefully as a group, and for anybody that's watching this who may really needed to have heard these words tonight. So we pray that there is impact to someone's life tonight through your words and through this lesson. We want to thank you for the way that you've watched over us, that you continue to help provide for us, to keep us protected from COVID. We pray that you would watch over the kids as they're going back to school, and all of the anxiety that the teachers have, the kids may have. School systems are probably getting prepared for a lot of negative. And so, Father, I pray that you would help people to calm any of that anxiety, and that you help the school year to start off successfully, that you help keep people's anxiety down, and that those of us who believe in you just pray over our schools and pray over the teachers and the students to be protected, to stay safe, keep them healthy, and help them to be successful. Father, I also pray that you would help any of our kids and adults who may be wondering, what are the plans that you have for me, God? That you would speak to their heart, speak to their life, help them to commit themselves to you and the plans that you have for them. Even though it may be something unknown or uncertain, we do know that you only want the best for us. And I know on my journey, something that has come as a phrase is to not settle. We settle sometimes as humans for what we think is the best, but Father, we know that you only want the best. You want to give us the best. So help us not to settle for anything less than what you have desired for our lives. I ask you these things in your name, amen.
Amen. All right, guys. I know we've been kind of long tonight, and I'm sorry about that. I hope that what we've had to share has been helpful and meaningful to you. I want to remind you real quick, of course, church Sunday, 10 o'clock at the church. Don't forget your mask. And then, of course, next Wednesday, let's hope the weather goes well and we can all get back together after your first day of school. I'm sure you'll all love all that homework that you'll bring back with you. So I'm excited to see how excited you are about being back at school next Wednesday.
Yay.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. Love y'all. I'll see you on Sunday or Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so it was